Hello! It's a me, Billio! Wahoo! Sorry, I couldn't resist. Hello, everybody. BillyCreston here, and today's topic is video game adaptations. These have been a historically mixed bag, ranging from the laughably bad to the so bad they're good to the memorable, and finally to the few that have been done well, you know. The list of adaptations done well pales in comparison greatly to those that failed to capture the feel of the source material, and many of them were just blatant cash grabs that had little to nothing to do with really anything. It's like they just slapped the title on there and said, hey, that'll do. That'll do, pig. I have a list on screen right now of the ones that I personally have enjoyed, and they're in no particular order. But, you know, while all of them were enjoyable, there's very few on this list that could be considered perfectly or even well executed. So with that in mind, I went into the latest adaptation to hit theaters this weekend with high hopes and cautious optimism. And that movie was, of course, the Super Mario Brothers movie, done in a collaboration between Nintendo and Illumination. Illumination, of course, is more famous for, you know, giving us the Minions. So, thanks, Illumination. That hasn't been annoying as fuck. Anyway, I grew up on Mario. In fact, it was the first game I ever played on the first console I ever owned, really. The Nintendo Entertainment System. I played through the first 3 installments on the NES, then moved on to the Super NES and, you know, of course, Super Mario World, and then moved on to the N64 and played one of my favorite games of all time, which was Super Mario 64. There were also other spin-offs like Mario Kart, Smash Brothers. I even played Mario is Missing, which was kind of like one of those weird educational Mario games. So needless to say, I've been a fan of Mario for a while. And when the news broke of this movie, I was overjoyed and, you know, a bit disappointed at times, but I got over it, decided to give it a go before making any final judgments. And I am very glad that I did. To say that I enjoyed this film would be a gross understatement. This film will go down in at least my top 5 video game adaptations of all time. I was grinning ear to ear the whole time. And I could not wait to write this review. And honestly, when I was writing this review, it ended up being like 10 friggin' pages of just stuff that I was just throwing at the wall. And so I had to go back and kind of trim it down. So you're getting the Cliff Notes version of that. But anyway, so without any further ado, let's get into it. There will be spoilers discussed, so, you know, you've been warned. With most films that I see, you know, I usually take a 5 good, 5 bad approach. I really struggled to find anything really wrong with this movie where I was just like, nah, I didn't like that. The points that I have that aren't so favorable about this movie are more just me ranting and have almost nothing to do with the movie itself, but I'll get into that in a moment. So, let's just start with the good. So to start with the good, we have Easter eggs galore. Now, this movie relies heavily on the fan base that it's established over the last 40-something years, and adds a lot of blink-and-you'll-miss-it items in the background, as well as some more obvious call-outs. They do not stop at all throughout this entire movie, which I think is great. I think it's an awesome experience for a lifelong gamer such as myself. What Wreck-It Ralph did for the arcade nostalgia, this movie does for Mario fans. It's one of those things where I feel like I'd have to watch the movie like 3 or 4 more times just to catch everything, and even then, I'd probably notice more things upon repeated viewings. There are so many cool little details in this movie, and I could not possibly go into all of them, but if you've ever played a Mario game before, you'll love it. We also get that super creepy eel thing from Mario 64. I think he was called Unagi in Mario 64, whatever his name was. He used to freak the shit out of me as a kid. It's the kind of thing that you love to see as a huge nerd. And if I had to pick 1 or 2 favorites, they would definitely be a tie between the following: the antique shop and the reference to Jumpman. So when Mario first arrives in the Mushroom Kingdom, there's so much going on in the background that it's hard to really focus on every little thing. However, one thing in the movie that the movie kind of focuses on is an antique shop selling all kinds of stuff. On the shelves are all kinds of 2D sprites used in the earlier Mario titles, which was so cool to see. But the best part of this is the salesman. Another one of the Toads is searching through a stack of old cartridges from the NES, and he's like, "Hey, do these work?" And the reply from the store clerk is, "Well, yeah, you just need to blow on them." And I chuckled at this for a solid 2 to 3 minutes. Because as those of you who grew up with cartridge games know, this was such a common problem. Like, before you could even get the game to work, when you turned on the power button, you had to pull it out, blow on it, shake it around a little bit. Even though, what I think is funny is that the warning label on those cartridges says specifically not to do that, which I didn't even know was a thing until like 2 weeks ago, to be honest. So moving into the Jumpman reference, early on in the film we see the, titular Mario Brothers in a pizza shop. And they interact with this old man playing an arcade cabinet who exclaims with the classic, Yahoo! My Mario voice sucks. But that's Charles Martinet, the, anyone who is a Mario fan will instantly recognize him. He's basically been the voice of Mario since Mario had voice lines. However, that's not the coolest part. He's dressed in like Mario's classic attire from his like pre-Super Mario days, and the arcade cabinet that he's playing on is called Jumpman, which was going to be Mario's original name. I think it was actually his original name in the Donkey Kong instruction booklet for the NES game, before Nintendo changed it to Mario. And fun fact for all of you history buffs out there, Mario got his name from Nintendo of America's warehouse landlord, who demanded rent like that guy from the Raimi Spider-Man films. Just another one of those cool little details that appeal to nerds like myself. Moving on to my next point, the Rainbow Road and Mario Kart sequence. We move on to a later scene in the movie here. We get a nod to the Mario Kart games where our heroes kind of travel along the Rainbow Road, a map that's been responsible for many a broken controller, even to this day. There are a lot of really cool scenes in this movie, but I was still thinking about this one like hours after I left the theater. Turtle shells are thrown, banana peels are discarded, and make people spin out and hit the wall and explode and fall off the map. And we even get to see the dreaded blue shell take out the guy in first place. The attention to detail in this particular segment, the attention to detail in the entire movie is great, but in this particular segment, they select their carts. There's little actions from the Mario Kart series, like the drift boost and stuff like that just make this such a cool scene. And it does in 5 minutes what the Fast and the Furious franchise couldn't do in 5 films. And it's even somehow more believable. Moving on, multiple generations love this film. As I said before, the Mario franchise is a little bit over 40 years old, and he's been in like 200-something games. So that means there's something for everyone in this movie. There's a lot of references and callbacks to it. In the theater that I was in, there were people of all ages. Granted, parents are going to have to take their kids to this movie and stuff like that, but the parents were just as excited, as the kids were. And, all of them cheered whenever they found that little something that caught their attention. Like, oh, hey, I recognize that from that game. You absolutely love to see that with a movie. And to me, that's what makes this film less of a movie and more of an experience. I have to give an honorable mention to the soundtrack here as well, because that plays such an integral part in the film. We get classic Mario music that's kind of done orchestrally, if that's a word, that, really anyone of any generation will appreciate. And then there's, these well-known like songs from actual artists and stuff like that that pretty much anyone will enjoy. There's even a subtle little Guardians of the Galaxy nod towards the end of the movie, which I think was really cool and kind of a cool little haha, did you get it? And as of the time of recording this, this is the highest grossing animated film of all time, which is just insane to me. Like when you think of like all the cool animated stuff that's come out, like from Disney and from, Pixar, all that stuff. Like, I hope this means that we're getting a Nintendo cinematic universe soon, because that would be really cool. My final good point that I want to bring up is the climactic battle with Bowser. The final battle with Bowser. That is hard to say. The final battle with Bowser. Say that 5 times fast. There are lots of enemies in this film, all of whom act exactly as you'd expect them to from the games. But none more so than the King of Koopas himself, Bowser. Jack Black was the perfect choice for this role. But that's besides the point. The majority of the movie revolves around the superstar that Bowser has retrieved, and with it he plans to just rule everything, typical King Bowser shit. I expected this to be more of a nod to like the stars that you collect in Mario 64, but that's when I realized that there's one power-up we haven't seen in this movie yet. And that is, well, the superstar, the one that goes do makes you all freaking invincible and shit. Mario and Luigi get the power of the superstar. They go all invincible and just wreck everything standing in their path, including Bowser himself, which is just friggin' awesome. It's like an episode of Dragon Ball Z with Mario and Luigi, and it's so friggin' cool. I just wish they would have ended it with Mario's classic line from Mario 64. He's like, "So long, King Bowser!" Like at the end when he beats him. I was seriously waiting for that to come up. So that was the good. What about the bad? Well, like I said, the bad really had nothing to do with the movie itself, but we'll get into it all the same. So the first pain point, if you will, to use some corporate lingo on you all, is the critics. Can I just say this right now? Fuck the tomato meter. The critics that review these movies, they act like they don't even enjoy them. Like they don't even enjoy movies, like the experience of going to the theater and just enjoying a damn movie just for the sake of it. I get it, we all need to make a living, but you don't see me reviewing movies that I know I'll have zero interest in, right? So what's the point of reviewing a movie that doesn't interest you? Using the very poor example of Rotten Tomatoes for this, 234 critics, I guess they kind of round it up to an average or whatever the hell they do. They gave it a 58% rating. However, over 10,000 moviegoers that reviewed it themselves gave it a 96%. I don't think I need to elaborate further. The fans have spoken. Moving on, there was the backlash to Chris Pratt's casting. Okay, so I did kind of jump on the bandwagon for this one. I even kind of cringed when I saw Seth Rogen was going to be cast as Donkey Kong, but thankfully we only get one of his signature ho-ho-hos in this movie. But I think Chris himself said it best when he said, "Go see the film first and then we'll talk." He does do the classic Mario voice for a moment at the beginning, which honestly he did so good with that. But after seeing the movie, I think that that would have worn really thin on everybody real quick, and even my 8-year-old daughter said the same thing. So I think Chris did a fantastic job with this. Mario is an Italian American from Brooklyn in the movie, and while I don't know many Italian Americans from Brooklyn, I think Chris pretty much nailed it. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I thought he nailed it. Charles Martinet also does get to voice Mario's dad in this movie. He plays 2 different roles. One's just kind of a cameo in the beginning, and then but him playing Mario's dad kind of makes sense, because in a sense he's kind of like passing the torch to Chris. Overall, I don't really think that there's one casting that I was disappointed with. So, note for future Billy, see the movie first and then make judgments. My last point, and it really is not anything big, but there's only a runtime of like an hour and a half with this movie. I walked away from this movie wanting more, like instantly. But that's also a really smart move on the film's part, because everybody will be waiting for a sequel, or for future films, which I know I will. And at the end of the day, this is a kid's movie, Can't expect kids to really sit through like a 3-hour movie like with the Marvel films, without at least a bathroom break in there. Overall, I'm hugely satisfied with this movie. I can't wait to see more. I really hope we get like a Legend of Zelda or a Metroid film in the future. I'm not the biggest fan of Nintendo and their business practices as of late. They've really done some, well, there's no finer way of putting it. They're a shitty company when it comes to some things, but I'll definitely be buying this movie upon physical release. Solid 5 out of 5 stars from old BillyCreston here. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.